Welcome back. Last time we saw you, if you're watching these in order, you don't have to, but last time we saw you, we were talking about cattle and we talked about the science behind their stomach. We talked about that ruminant system with 4 compartments in the stomach and how it's different from a human or a monogastric with 1 part to our stomach. The livestock we're talking about today have the same stomach. We are going to talk about sheep, and they're much smaller than cattle, so their stomach is also, but it works in the same way that a cow's stomach works. It has those 4 compartments. What we're going to be doing is giving you some information, and then your teachers have an option to play a game with you using this information. But even if you're not playing the game, hopefully you'll stick with us to learn a little more about sheep. In our experience, this is the livestock that people don't know as much about. Iowa doesn't have a ton of sheep, but I think you're going to find that they're pretty interesting. And we do have a lot of sheep farmers in Iowa. We just don't tend to have huge ranches with a lot of sheep on those farms. So your teachers do have access to this page. Whether they've printed that and given it to you is up to them. So there's a couple ways this could go. Your teacher might be asking you to read this and then fill in some information. Maybe that's not the case today. Maybe you're taking the quick route, but hopefully you do have this page. So we're going to give you a moment. For those of you who are filling this in on your own, do that now. If you are getting all this information from us instead of the article, just stick with us and we're going to go through all that information with you. And this is everything you will need to know in order to play that game.
Okay, so maybe some of you have already went through this as a class, but now we're going to go through it together with you. Meredith will be writing in the answers that we go through, and I'll be sharing a few things about sheep. So the first thing we're going to talk about is raising sheep. So in the first blank, or in the first sentence, it says, like cattle, sheep are ruminants with blank compartments in their stomach. So if you think back, we had talked about cattle having 4 compartments in their stomach. That's called a ruminant. So your first blank is 4. Sheep can eat Iowa-grown resources like blank and blank. Grass is a given because they're on pasture in the summer. But then what's our other number 1 crop in Iowa going to be? That's going to be corn. They eat grass and corn.
So, step over here. So, sheep eat a lot of different feed sources. So, in this bucket right here, we've got just some straight shell corn. If you drive by fields in summertime and see cornfields, this is this is what we harvest in the fall, and this is what the sheep. The mother ewes eat a lot of this, and the lambs, when they're first born, don't eat a whole lot of it. But eventually they get to it. About a month's worth of age is when they really start eating the corn. Over here is just some good alfalfa hay, and once again the mothers, the ewes, eat a lot of that. Not so much the lambs, but it only takes about 3 or 4 days where the lambs will start nibbling on hay and start developing that rumen, and this is good for the rumen and whatnot. The middle bucket here is the aftermath after we take the corn off the field. Is just some corn stalks. So corn stalks are dual purpose for us. In the sheep eat them, but it supplies basically a bed with good bedding. When the lambs are born, we're putting basically a fresh bedding out twice a day to keep them dry, keep them healthy, and get them really off to that good start, that fast track to life.
When sheep have lambs, so when they're having their babies, they usually have a single, which is 1, or twins, which is 2. Female sheep are called, that's what we call a ewe, E-W-E. Not the Y-O-U like we're used to spelling, but E-W-E. whereas male sheep are called ram. RAM. Sometimes you might hear another word, they might be called a buck, but a lot of times we say ram.
Am I right that buck is more common in the goat world?
Probably, yes. Or yes, most
Yeah.
definitely. Yep. Okay, let's go to sheep for management. Sheep are grazing animals. They can be used to eat and keep back weeds. Now I already said that we're used to seeing them out on the pasture, but they also are good at keeping weeds down. Sheep are even helpful in preventing forest fires. They can keep back flammable brush. So while they're eating the grass, they're also eating weeds, which when you have a forest fire, you want all that brush to be gone, so that fire you don't keep feeding the fire. It's cleared out.
And I'm going to butt in.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a lot of forest fires
Nope.
in Iowa, but Colorado does. And
Yes.
they also have a lot more sheep than we do.
Yep.
That is not a coincidence. Sheep can graze in areas that it's hard to go clear out brush.
Yep.
So if you're in a mountainous area, it's harder to get tractors and equipment back there to clean out that brush, but a herd of sheep can easily go graze in that area.
Yep, very good. While sheep can eat weeds and brush, Iowa farmers also supply a diet of grain and forage for their sheep to ensure they are healthy. Okay, let's scoot down to sheep production. Sheep produce meat that is called lamb or mutton. MUTTON. Lamb is from a sheep 1 year old or younger. Mutton is from older sheep. So if they're above that year-old mark, I actually think it's 18 months or above, then it's called mutton. Sheep are sheared to collect their wool. Sheep get a haircut once a year. And at my house, we shear sheep right before they have their baby lambs. Their wool is useful in many different things, and that's what the next question is. Wool is used to make many products. Can you list some wool products?
Right. So our operation is predominantly meat based. So we do shear. Okay, so predominantly the Midwest sheep producers are not raising sheep for wool; they are doing it for more meat. And so the ranches out in California, Wyoming, Montana, they are the ones that have they're more so for the wool production. But the wool is a byproduct that we use. So some of the stuff that we can get from the wool. I mean, so the sheep operation here is very much for meat, and but the wool. Some wool here a little bit. So this is what the wool looks like when we shear the sheep. So the ewes, the mothers, we shear them. Actually, believe it or not, in about 30 days prior to lambing. So, like my first group was starting in the middle or the first part of January, so we sheared them in December. Some people think that's a little it's backwards. Well, there's two reasons why we shear them. This wool is very warm. If anybody's worn wool socks, which is a product of what we make wool out of, they keep your feet extremely warm. So if we don't shear those ewes, they will eventually have those lambs outside, where like in this past December was extremely cold. So we shear them so that they go inside and have their lambs inside, where the barn is kept about 40 degrees, which in an animal and in a sheep's world is equivalent to your 70 degrees in your house. So it's a very comfortable environment, very dry environment, and once again, that's about that fast track delay. Also, one of the bigger things is the ewes are shorn once a year, so there's a pretty good coat of wool on that. Well, if we don't shear the wool off, the lambs cannot find the teats to get that first nursing of milk, which eventually they'll what we call wool suck. They'll just suck wool, and they won't get no milk, and eventually they could die. So once again, a health thing that we do, and to have them inside, to have so that lambs get off that first good start.
Awesome.
So.
Well, right off the bat, in the wintertime, a lot of times I will have on some kind of sock that keeps me warm. And it's usually a wool sock. So let's list 3 products. One of those will be socks. Sweaters is another product. And blankets would probably be another good one made out of wool. Okay, let's go over to herding sheep. Sheep have a blank mentality. They have a herd mentality. They like to stick together in a group. They like to be in their herd. Sheep follow a leader. They aren't very independent. In fact, at my house, I have a lead ewe, and she has a bell on her, and that's just what she does. She's the lead ewe. They follow her. Wherever she goes, they follow her. Sheep stay in a group called a flock. They stay in a flock. They have a herd mentality, but they stay together in a flock. Just like birds flock together, sheep stay in a flock. Sometimes guard animals are used to protect sheep. Do you know any animals commonly used for sheep protection? We're going to list those right here. One of the animals commonly used here in Iowa are llamas. They protect by kicking and biting. They protect against coyotes and other predators. The next most common animal in Iowa is probably a donkey. You see a lot of donkeys in pastures, maybe with cows or with sheep. They protect. And the last most common animal is going to be a dog, a working dog. And that's what I have at my house, a livestock guardian dog. And his job is to patrol all night long. He patrols my farm, and he makes sure that no coyotes come in to get the sheep. So they all have a very important job, but that's just 3 of the different animals that protect the sheep.
So, teachers, if you're sticking with us, you should have a link to Jeopardy online. If for some reason that's not working, we did also send you the physical Jeopardy that you could play if you're choosing to do that with your class. If you're not doing that today, just take this information with you. Make sure you teach someone else a little something about sheep.
Yeah.
And we will see you one more time this year. Bye, guys.